Hello everyone, and thank you for being here. Today we're going to be studying lecture number 39 called Non-Identification with Things of Daily Life and Why We Judge Others. We are going to learn how not to become identified with our defects and with our daily life problems or circumstances, and why not to criticize others in order to prevent the consciousness from falling asleep. Also, we are going to be learning about the law of the mirror. But first, we need to know what's the meaning of becoming identified. Identical to a defect. For example, we can say we are angry, and that means we become identified with anger. So now we are acting identical to how anger acts, yelling, fighting, punching, and so on. We can say we are sad, and that means we become identified with sadness. So now we act identical to that defect. We feel sorrow, we cry, we suffer. Every time we become identified with any defect, we are being identical to that defect. But notice that I'm saying being identical, and that's because that defect is not what we really are. We are consciousness. But every time we identify ourselves with a defect, our consciousness falls asleep. When a defect has taken all over our centers and is manifesting itself through us, the consciousness is not there anymore. We forget ourselves, we are not present, we forget our inner being, we forget why we are here, and we forget that all this is an illusion. The only thing that's real is our being, our consciousness. We need to know that life is like a movie with its multiple scenes or moments. Moments of happiness, sorrow, pain, all sorts of enjoyable moments, and all sorts of painful moments. And the most important thing to do is to withdraw wisdom from each one of those moments. May they be good or bad. In order to do that, we need to observe the actors participating or manifesting on those scenes. Those actors are our psychological defects. If we, in every moment of our life, stay present and focused, self-observing ourselves, we are going to be able to observe these defects, wanting to make us become identified and wanting to manifest through us. And there is where our consciousness is acting, when we are observing those defects. A bad moment is, for example, to have a fight. Imagine we had a fight with our couple. In that situation, the correct thing to do would have been to practice this on March, ongoing death, in order to observe which defects wanted to manifest through us at that moment. The defect of anger, of fury, pride, the defect of yelling, arguing, punching, cursing, hatred, maybe sadness, shame, guilt, the defect that commands revenge, and so on. If you become identified with them, you lost the opportunity to eliminate them at the moment. But now you can do a reflective meditation to bring that scene up and observe the actors or defects acting at that moment in order to understand and eliminate them. If you eliminate them from your psychology, that scene is not going to repeat again because there will be no actors to act it. We can withdraw wisdom from moments of joy too. Remember a party, a scene where you were having a lot of fun. What defects were you identified with at that moment? Lust, alcohol, drugs, dance, euphoria, exaltation, maybe fear of what people would say or think of you in the party, nonsense chatter, they need to be part of or accepted by others, gluttony, disobedience, maybe you were there without your parents' consent, and so many other defects. All the sins in our lives are given due to the actors we have in our psychology, and they repeat constantly because we haven't eliminated the actors. So let's talk about problems, because we have a lot of problems, but that is so because we have a lot of defects. Problems appear when we become identified and let the defects get to our minds. Our mind tends to magnify our problems, make them bigger. First of all, with all that thinking and feelings, especially fear, we are feeding them with our energy, so they grow tremendously. If we want problems to disappear and we start thinking, looking for a solution, it's going to get worse. First, we need to eliminate the cause of the problem. As we eliminate the cause of the problem itself will disappear, just like like magic. And what are the causes of all our problems? Our psychological defects. Remember, as it is inside, is outside. We need to solve the problems inside so they can be solved outside. When we are facing a certain situation, our defects tend to start projecting things that have not even happened, and we start to fear situations that are not real. For example, maybe I don't have the money to pay the rent this month, and my defects take all over my mind and start projecting what is going to happen if I don't pay. I start imagining that my landlord is taking me out the apartment. Where am I going to live now? I'm going to end up in the streets. What am I going to eat? Poor me. What's going to happen with my children? And as I continue thinking about it, it's going to get worse. What we have to do is taking the bull by the horns, facing our fears to observe what are those behind them. Of course, we are going to find our own psychological defects, manifesting and projecting and acting on those movies, on those scenes, on our minds. All the people we see in those projections, suppositions, and mechanical imagination represented in our mind by other people are part of our psychology, our own egos, our defects acting there. For example, in this situation where we don't have the money to pay the rent and we start projecting us being taken out the house by the landlord and all the people observing us and laughing and making fun of us, my children suffering, the thieves stealing our things in the street, the people calling us a failure and talking badly about us, criticizing us and judging us. All of them are manifestation of our own psychology, our own ego, our own defects, feeding with our energy expelled through fear. We have the impatient and greedy landlord defect, the defects that make fun of others, the thieves, the ones that suffer, the ones that criticize, and so on. But this is how the magic works. If we start killing all that thoughts, all the defects manifesting, as soon as we solve the problem inside, it's going to get solved outside. No matter which problem we are talking about or how big and difficult we think it is. So try and realize the power of psychological death. Also, we need to understand that everything passes. Any circumstance will not last forever, no matter how bad it may seem. When we become identified, we forget ourselves, our divine being, and forget that we are here for a period of time to obtain wisdom from this manifestation. We forget that this world is an illusion, subjected by time, but what we really are is eternal and immortal. Another thing to take into account is that we owe karma, generated by our defects, of course. And also our karma generates these terrible circumstances in which we constantly find ourselves. So we need to be generating dharma to completely kill our defects and pay our karmic debts. So it is necessary to be working also on the factor sacrifice for humanity, as well as the psychological death and the spiritual birth. Also, it's not what we usually do, but we need to see problems as opportunities and acknowledge that the worst circumstances in life are the ones that contribute the most to our inner work, because they give us the opportunity to observe the most quantity of defects from which we'll withdraw more wisdom. Another thing to take into account is that when we become identified, we can't observe the defect that is manifesting, because at that moment the defect is managing the whole machine, and the defect is not going to observe itself. It's not going to observe, judge, or eliminate itself. Well, so now let's explain why we judge others. Let's start by saying that this occurs because we don't know ourselves. So the people around us serve us as a mirror. What bothers us about someone is exactly what we have hidden within our psychology. But we don't recognize it, we don't accept we have it, and for lack of self-observation, we even don't know that we have it. The thing is that we don't like to see it in others. Things that we criticize and hate the most in others are the things that we need to work the most within ourselves. And we are going to realize that as we progress in developing the self-observation sense. This is the law of the mirror. We project ourselves onto others. This is a very good tactic of the defects. They hide behind criticism and judgment towards others, while making us feel good people, making us feel we are not like the others, that we are better, and that this judgmental state is a proof of that. If you want to know what is the defect you urgently need to work on, observe what is the defect you dislike and criticize the most in other people. If we want to work on ourselves, that's the way this law could help us. Working within us, everything we dislike and criticize in others. Another important thing to take into account is that we need to identify in which pole of the defect we find ourselves, because we may be in the same pole or in the opposite pole of the defect. For example, the alcohol defect, like all the defects, has two polarities: the active and the passive. The active is the drunkard and the passive is the abstemian. So it's very common to see the abstemian criticizing the drunkard and vice versa. Also, we could be in the same polarity as the drunkard, but we tend to justify our own consumption of alcohol and condemn the other who drank alcohol. The consequences of criticism are, first, that we cannot self-observe ourselves because we are directing our observation towards others, to the exterior. Second, the self-critical judgment slips, so we can't judge or criticize ourselves anymore. Also, we are going to be put in the shoes of others, I mean in the same situations or circumstances, so we can see their point of view. Also, the judgment we do is slender because we don't know the reality or truth of the situation. Also, it generates a bad relationship with the person that we are criticizing because the ego communicates telepathically, so the other person starts feeling antipathy towards us. This happens under the reason, but it happens. And last but not least, this also generates karma. Criticism is an action, okay? And remember that actions generate karma. The benefits of fighting these two errors, not becoming identified and not criticizing, are: first, our consciousness is not going to fall asleep. We are going to keep that state of self-observation and awareness so that the consciousness could manifest, okay, not the ego. We will recover the critical judgment. We are going to be able to observe ourselves as we really are, rather than believing we are good or victims of the circumstances. This gives us the opportunity to radically change our lives. Also, the ongoing death on Mars, is going to perform impressively, because we are going to be conscious more time, deriving this in being able to see more psychological defects and details. And last, but not least, this will make us advance a lot in our inner work, okay? Remember that the key is always directing the observation to the inner world, identifying which defects want to manifest, in which pole they are, making discoveries and eliminating what is being understood. Supplicating, of course, our Divine Mother to eliminate the defect we have previously discovered and understood with the phrase, Divine Mother, eliminate this I or this defect from me. It is important and fundamental for advancing in this inner work to start fighting, not to become identified and stop judging others. And well, this has been today's conference. Thank you very much for being here. If you have any question, you can leave it in the comments and we'll be answering there. See you in the next conference, where we'll be learning everything about the third factor for the revolution of consciousness, sacrifice for humanity. We'll be learning what is it, its benefits, its requirements, and the different ways we can sacrifice for others. So thank you very much and see you next time.